Hi, my name is Garric. Vosloo. This is Functional Medicine Fast Track, and today I want to come to you and give you 4 great reasons why you should be introducing genetics into your practice and just what this can do for your practice and for your patients. So the first reason is that it's actually so freely available today and inexpensive. And you'll see on television nowadays, Ancestry, 23andMe advertise like mad. And it really is something that people are so interested in, and they want to know what their genetics are. So the big problem is that a lot of the genetics that you get on like 23andMe and Ancestry is difficult to read. The data is all raw. You've got to put it through other platforms to get some kind of report, and it's really a waste of money and a waste of time in the end. So just to know that there's actually many other platforms that are far more friendly, literally the same price, maybe a little bit more because the reports are more defined and the research is a little bit more solid, but it's much of a muchness, and you don't want to be going and throwing away $100, $200 by doing Ancestry and 23andMe when you can go and spend, say, $300 and really get a proper report. So that's the first thing to just bear in mind. The second is to really understand that genetics give you tremendous insight into all the possibilities of what your patient could be experiencing. In other words, there are different categories of genetic inefficiencies that we look at in a health perspective that relate very much to the patients that you're seeing in your practice every day. And those are all around things like methylation, which is to do with glutathione production, methylation factors in the brain, and then we're looking at detoxification factors, vital for so many conditions, chronic conditions that we see, inflammation. We're looking at oxidative stress genetics, and are they efficient or not, and then bone stress markers. So those are just some of the categories that are vital to know. And if you come across a genetic panel that shows many inefficiencies, that is going to lead you to dig on deeper, but most importantly, you're going to be able to sit across from your patient and have a conversation and let your patient really resonate with you, that you know a little bit more than the person down the road, and that you have the insight and the ability to help them to the next step. Because remember, genetics is genetic. It's not what is expressing itself in real time. Now, your patient's sitting there with chronic conditions, pain, fatigue, energy issues, hormone issues, whatever it may be. So there is something happening in their system, and it is more than likely related to some of those inefficiencies that you're seeing in that genetic report. But the key is to know that that genetic report can then just be used to find out more precisely what to measure and test on an objective basis with further testing. So genetics are genetics. You're only going to ever do it once. Real-time results are something that you're going to do over and over, because that is what is happening in the body at that point. So for example, like if inflammatory genes come up and they are really inefficient, we want to know what is that fatty acid profile for that patient. And that is, again, a simple test that's freely available nowadays. And we can start to understand in that cell membrane, what is it looking like? Is it looking healthy, that the phospholipid layer has a good balance of omega-3 and omega-6? Does it have a ton of trans fatty acids in there? Just those basics are going to give you an idea of, are the inflammatory pathways of omega-3 and omega-6, which produce arachidonic acid towards inflammation, or the anti-inflammatory with alpha-linolenic acid going down to EPA and DHA and all the resolvins that help inflammation to resolve. That's why they're called resolvins. And is that balanced or not? So your genetics are going to give you an indication of if those are possibilities to check. And the great thing is then you've got numbers in front of you, you've got a deeper insight with your patient, and you're going to the next step with them of their health towards optimal wellness. And we just had a fantastic example in our practice where we had a client or a colleague who referred her husband And then while we were sitting in a consult, the initial consult, she decided to run her own genetics proactively, and along with some other tests, just to find out exactly where she was at. She felt at that point in time that her health was great. Fortunately, when we actually dug deeper, we did see that she was having recurrent chronic fatigue on an annual basis. But at that point, she was feeling great. But when we went through her timeline, we found a number of chronic issues that were popping up from time to time that were becoming more regular. Now, when we went into her genetics particularly, we came across a gene called ApoE4, and she had 2 of those copies. Now, those copies are tremendously useful because there's a ton of research that indicates that you really predispose highly towards Alzheimer's disease and cardiovascular disease. And if you've got both of those, only 10% of the population have it, that you really need to have your lifestyle in check, and you need to be checking your real-time data that inflammation is not heading south, oxidative stress is under check, your methylation issues are working. And this may be a little bit foreign to you, it may not be, but I'm just trying to give you an understanding of when those things come across our table in genetics, like an ApoE4, we need to be very, very aware, because it's now our responsibility to be able to guide that patient through wellness wherever they are in their life at the moment. We've got to keep them in optimal wellness. And every health practitioner, that's in their scope of practice, is keeping a patient in optimal wellness. Unfortunately, most people do not know how to actually objectively help somebody into optimal wellness. They all want to do generic programs on wellness, and you must sleep great and drink plenty and eat colorful foods. But are they really becoming personalized for their patient? No, it's generalized. So we have to become more specific, and there's nothing more specific than genetics. And in that instance with our patient, who we saw a homozygous ApoE4 double copy, we knew that both her parents had a minimum of 1 copy each, and they would be predisposing to cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline. And in that consult, when we started to explain this to her, she went very quiet and pale, and she actually said, "My father is complaining at the moment of memory loss." And the joy is that when we pick it up early, even at that stage of mild memory loss, it can be reversed. And the key is, if that situation was left alone, he would have progressed to full-on Alzheimer's disease, and we know the consequences of that is devastating. So that is just a quick example, and I don't want to go into more depth of that. I just want you to realize the power of genetics and how we can, as practitioners, start to actually understand the possibilities, because the research is there. The research has been done for us and can show us where people can tend towards with certain genetics. And we can track that and measure that in real-time markers with a number of different specialized tests that we do in functional medicine. So the 4th point is to understand what it can do for your practice. And just in this situation, we have found that not only have we helped her husband, we've helped her, now we're looking at her father and her mother's genetics to help her, we're helping her sister, and that has generated business for us, not as though we're just purely looking at how do we increase turnover, but you got to understand that what it can do just for your practice. It can increase patient flow, cash flow, and create better results for your patients, because you're just in a different mentality of knowing exactly what to look for. So know that these 3 aspects, that genetics are just freely available nowadays, they're inexpensive, and they're worth. Patients want to do it, so why not connect with a practitioner that knows how to actually resolve and understand that data and put it down into basic layman's terms, and what can they measure in real time, and then what can they do about it. And then realize that genetics gives us tremendous insight into your patient sitting there right now, why they may plateau, why they may never get better, why they've had these situations for so long. because certain genes can be upregulated, and it's difficult to get out of that upregulation without doing a really targeted plan to back all of that down. And then just know that, again, as I was saying, it really makes you stand out from the others. You're going to be doing something that others aren't. They haven't taken the time to learn genetics and how that corresponds with your patients. And then what can it do? The fourth aspect is what can it do for your practice? Just in that example, that generated 4 or 5 extra patients for us to look after, not just in the short term. We'll be looking after them for the rest of their lives, because now we have identified what can predispose them to a devastating disease, and we can keep them in optimal health and wellness. And that is very, very powerful. So my name is Garric Vosloo. This is Functional Medicine Fast Track. And if you want more information on how to just learn about genetics, put a comment into the post below, reply to our email, or go to our website and find out more about functional medicine. Any of those methods are going to help you to understand more about genetics, functional medicine, what it can do for your patients and for you. So until next time, take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.